we now have our draw for the groups and the play-ins of Worlds 2021. I don't know what happened here in terms of first reactions because I was walking over, but we have a lot of time to get into it. I want to start with the play-ins because that's also going to inform maybe a bit more contextually into the groups, which teams could end up joining the groups we already have. Freak, let me go to you first in terms of the play-ins and the draw.
Sure. So I think this is actually, I would say, from an LCS perspective, I think the best possible draw. So what it comes down to is the fact that I think not only can Cloud9 win their entire group, but even if they only get second, they will have a really good shot against the third or fourth from the opposite side. I think Group B is basically stacked in terms of the third, fourth place area. Like all the teams, I think, that are threatening in the best of 5. I think they're all on this side of this. So, Cloud9 Beyond, I think is going to be a fun fight overall. And then even if Cloud9 does drop down, I think it's going to be, a good shot otherwise. So I think it's going to be kind of interesting because it means that I do have some level of threat towards whoever gets second in Group A. I think the competition, if you get second, you have to kind of play the cross group BO5. That is a little bit threatening for what I assume to be Hanwha Life getting second in that group.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I understand now. Because if I understand correctly, C9, assuming LNG and Hanwha Life finish top 2, you as Cloud9 would end up playing Infinity, Peace, or Red Canids, right? That's what,
which we're going to win the best of 5 then, right?
Right. I understand where your confidence comes from now. That makes almost
sense.
Well,
only, if you're number 1, you go through, right? So
yes, if you're number 1.
Yeah, of course, right? If you top the group, it's great.
Yes. Because I was going to say, when I look at Group B, typically, the teams that you always fear are the CIS and Turkey, right? These are the two teams that traditionally in play-ins actually have a very strong showing. And the fact that they're both on the same side of the group, I think makes Group B that much scarier. And the fact that DFM now kind of have this completed super team that they've been building over the years. I think that Group B, in terms of like upset potential, is very high. But when it comes to the best of 5s, one of those teams is going to have to play against LNG or Hanwha Life unless they can sneak into the
Probably. Let's say probably, right? We don't know. So, Chronicler, you were a bit, I want to say like hot and cold, not really sure what Hanwha Life could bring. How confident are you that they will make it out of the play-ins at least?
I still have a lot of confidence in them, especially if they are able to maintain the form that we saw of them in the Gauntlet. I think that Group A is very top-heavy, and I think that the issues that Hanwha Life might run into are a lot harder to exploit for play-ins teams. So especially within that group, I'm not too worried about them. Once it comes to actually facing LNG, obviously, that's one I'm going to look closely to, because I think the top half of the map there, Wheeler and Tarzan especially, is something that personally I'd be terrified about. So it depends to what extent you can like kind of draw them into the Hanwha Life carousel where drafts are made up and topside doesn't exist.
Jordan, you had a lot of faith in LNG before the play-in draw. I suspect nothing has changed.
Yeah, I think just looking at LNG surprised ever since LPL playoffs with how good they are. I will say, not just for LNG, but any LPL teams, I'm always a bit afraid of best of 1s because LPL teams aren't the most disciplined. But I do think LNG got, I'll say, pretty lucky in terms of, I agree with what both Vedis and Freak said in terms of, I think all the stacked emerging region teams are on the bottom half of the bracket. And then it's just all about looking at LNG versus Hanwha. I do think LNG is heavily favored. We've actually seen the top lane matchup in the LPL before. Morgan, Hanwha's top laner, last year was in the LPL and WE. I think Ali's going to completely destroy him. I think Tarzan will have his way with Willer. And then, again, we're going to see what Chovy can do on Hanwha to try to offset all of that.
For sure. Of course, we don't have representatives from the other region. I know you're half an LGL representative as well. But of course, we can never count anyone out. That is the nature, as Jordan also talked about, of best of 1s. Anything can really happen. We have seen, since we've had this system, it's been hard for the teams to make like the final hurdle when they do get into the best of 5s, when we talk about not the top dogs in the group. Do you see possibility for the upset here?
Oh, I definitely do. I think that what's in particular, when I keep looking at Group B, I think that the fact that UOL have surprised before, the fact that Turkey always seems to send strong representatives regardless of the year, the fact that DFM have built this roster, and Beyond and PSG Talon, they were 5-5 during playoffs. Okay, so if you rate PSG at all, you should rate Beyond as well. Because watching their games, I feel like that they can go toe-to-toe with the PCS first seed, and I think that they're a team worth respecting. So I think Group B, I don't think it's going to be an easy ride for anyone, and because it's only single round robin, it's going to be scary. I think Group B is a very scary one when it comes to those best of ones.
All right, we'll see what happens indeed, and we're going to move on to talk about the group stage. We know 3 teams already in each group, then to be supplemented with the teams coming out of the play-ins. Yeah, I missed the initial reaction, so I'd love to take it back up, and maybe you guys can talk a bit more about it. Freak, talk to me about where the LCS has landed.
Yes. My initial reaction is thank you, Yankos. As far as I'm concerned, this is one of the best group draws that was possible. There was the coin flip of was it going to be Rogue or was it going to be Team Liquid in the group of death with Fun plus Phoenix and Damwon Kia? And it came up Rogue, so thank you, Yankos. I think 100 Thieves have a decent group for themselves. Obviously, EDG and T1 are tough opponents, but Team Liquid look well poised. The one bracketology thing I want to bring up, by the way, is that if the expected teams go through from play-ins, Cloud9 are guaranteed Group A because there's only one place many of those other teams can go. So Cloud9, if they want a really, really good bracket, they want to see Hanwha Life knocked out so that they could take their spot in Group C.
Maybe they can knock them out. That would obviously be very poetic as well.
That'd be even better.
Chronicler, talk to me about Group D. I want to talk about Gen G in combination with MAD and TL specifically.
I think that TL is stylistically a good matchup for Gen G. I think MAD is one that as a Gen G fan would terrify me. Historically, I think Gen G have had a really big difficulty, especially once it comes to like the high pressure matches against good aggressive European teams, and I don't expect it to be any different here. I do think that TL, based on what I've seen thus far, is if we see again Gen G return to form, which I do expect after the break that they've had, should still be outclassed in a lot of lanes. We've seen BDD absolutely pop off, especially during, I think, the group stage. So in that regard, I do think that they should still be favored to make it out there, but ahead of Mad Lions, that's a tall ask.
We'll see indeed. Jordan, let's go through the motions and assume that LNG makes it through. Then they land in Group D. Then we have LNG in Group D, we have EDG in Group B, and we have FPX drawn with Damwon into Group A. How do you feel about the chances as a whole then on the LPL?
Yeah, I mean, coming into any event like this, I never really fear for an LPL team getting out. I think LNG, is the one that if they go into that Group D, I think, again, NA Hopium here, very winnable for Team Liquid to make it out of that group, probably in second. But when I look at EDG in their group, when I look at RNG having to go up against teams like Fnatic and FPX against Damwon, I think all these groups are winnable for the LPL teams. I'm really excited to see especially that Group A matchup because you have both Khan and Nuguri going up against their former teams. So I think it's going to be a little bit personal.
Oh, it's personal. It's going to be phenomenal. From the side of EU, you know what? I actually like it. The harder the groups are, the more chances I give the teams to get out, and then they don't meet those teams in their groups for a while. So I'm disappointed.
No,
I'm kidding. Is this going to age well? Who knows?
So I think that, in my opinion, Fnatic looks good to get out of this group because I think either C9 goes in that group, or as Freak was saying, I think they can't, which means that Hanwha Life, if play-ins go the way that they're expected, then Hanwha Life would slot into that group. And then the question becomes, what does Hanwha look like? And how strong are they? But I'm very much in agreement with Lyric that I think the RNG should quite comfortably top this group. But the scary thing is the nature of best of ones and Fnatic's playstyle and the way in which they approach the game. Like, in best of ones, they can be very chaotic and they can create a lot of chaos. And Group C, I would say, is one of those groups that, similar to last year, exactly Group C, when all the teams seemed very close, anyone realistically could make it out. It's simply a matter of which team ends up showing up on the day. I think it's a very close group.
Yeah, Fnatic and RNG in a group, we've seen it.
Yeah, there's so much history.
Seen it a couple of times, and then spare a word for Rogue.
It was nice. I hope you have a nice trip to Iceland.
Beautiful, I hear.
The views, I've heard, are wonderful.
Really great.
Make sure you visit the...
What did Rogue do, guys? Tell me, as a non-EU
okay.
what did Rogue do?
Got his revenge.
That's actually a great point, because maybe not everyone who's watching watch a lot.
Rogue, during the regular season, have actually looked very dominant throughout the year. They tied for first in spring, and then they ended up first in summer. But then coming into playoffs, they almost lost to Misfits. If it wasn't for Inspired and his pentakill on Viego, they might not actually have even qualified. And then on top of that, when they played up against Fnatic, they were 3-0'd. And I feel like the problems that have existed for Rogue were finally really exploited in the playoffs here in summer. And it ultimately comes down to their mid game. They have a very tried and true style, which is draft strong laners, enable inspired, make sure that Han Sama gets a lot of the gold, and then these two are your primary carries. But in a meta that's very revolved around your support, working with your jungle and your mid laner, this team doesn't have that same level of synergy, and that's where a lot of the concerns for this team come from. And I think that in a group like this, where I think that they have, with Doinby and Showmaker being the two best mids in the world, I'm just not that optimistic.
I mean, I think it's fine to be like, all right, what's going to happen here? But they also carry that weight of last time around. They're for sure going to want to be good. So we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt until they play. A couple of more things. The world champion returning, T1. Finally, they're back at Worlds Freak. What do you make of their group so far? EDG, 100 Thieves, and T1. And let me think.
Yeah.
Who would slot in?
Expectation would be beyond, I think, maybe? Coming in on this one. Yeah. I think is the read based on how the brackets are working out. Again, if expected results come through. Again, I'll say from the NA perspective, one of the better groups 100 Thieves could get. I know if you watch a lot of LCK, you'll know that the second, third, fourth place teams out of LCK, like they are inconsistent. So, hey, on a good day, it's Faker, and they're going to win. On a bad day, it's Faker and 4 wards, and we know what 4 wards in a mid laner looks like. It's the LCS. We've seen this, happen time and time again with good mid laners. So, that can be the run here. EDG, obviously, winning the LPL title, have had their own share of stumbles, but obviously a very, very good team. EDG are just my pick for topping the group. T1, I think for most people say, hey, that's probably the #2 team right here, but I think 100 Thieves really can shine. Their best days are really, really outstanding. I wouldn't be shocked at a 5-1 record for 100 Thieves. Like that's realistic. Yes, it's the top end of realistic, but that's a realistic showing for 100 Thieves out of this group. And we're going to keep the LCS perspective going, where they split with EDG, and T1 just doesn't quite show up.
Hey, Freak. T1 may have Faker. 100 Thieves has Faker.
Faker Daga!
I mean, enough said. I did see...
He's good!
He's great!
Riot buffed Karma! If you didn't watch week 1 of the LCS summer split, he played 3 straight Karma games. They just played around closer, and it looked good. Like, Abidaga has a really, really good champion pool. He can play the assassins. Akali's probably out of meta. There's not a lot of great mid lane assassins outside LeBlanc, but he can play full support. I think Karma's actually probably a decent option at this point in time.
Freak has so much
like closer's going to pop out. It's going to be fun to watch.
I love it. I did see Chronicler smirking at the call of, this group and how it's going to play out.
I just want to object to a Faker and 4 wards. If you have one of the best supports in the entire world on your team, I don't know if that's ever fully justified. I do agree with you that T1 have shown some inconsistencies, but I think it's important to note the context in which these inconsistencies happen, right? I think that after last MSI, there was a lot of talk about the LCK being a one-team region, and while I think Damwon are still by far the strongest, we've seen a really big resurgence of LCK levels overall. And the fact that T1 not only made it to finals, but took a game of the Damwon looking as good as they did, I think is a clear-cut sign that, while I don't know if they'll pull ahead of EDG, I would be shocked if they don't make it out of this group.
It's so cool. And I just am reminded again of the fact that, the LCK having 4 seeds and the LPL having 4 seeds, that is just, it's like a mountain to climb, it seems, for any other region, right, Vedius?
For sure.
But we have some great groups, and hopefully with the meta changes and whatnot, some explosive play.
Yeah, and, everyone's gotten to talk about their groups. Mad Lions.
Yes. Sorry. Go ahead.
Free! It's free. I love it. Okay? I'm really excited for this group for Mad Lions. I think that Mad Lions' actual biggest issue has been their early game, and I don't think either of those teams are as capable as punishing Mad's early game as other teams would be that they could have gone up against. So I'm actually really optimistic for Mad. This may come back to bite me, but this is probably their best group. Of course, coming into the quarterfinals, if they make it there, their opposition will then be very, very difficult. Yeah, I'm really excited to see what this team can do. I know that they obviously couldn't qualify from play-ins last year, but In particular, Humanoid is the player that I think a lot of us are very excited to see back on the international stage. He has grown so much as a player over the years, and this year, and this split especially, he's cemented himself as the best mid in Europe in terms of what he does in lane, how he roams around the map, and with the introduction of El Yoya by his side and Kaiser looking phenomenal, like this is a team that Europeans can get excited about and should definitely be one of the favorites to get out of the group.
Oh, absolutely so. The favorites indeed, but we'll see how the cookie crumbles because it never crumbles the way you think it's going to. With that, I'm going to leave it to a last note from every single one of our analysts to represent their region. Freak, you can start. The word to the NA faithful before Worlds.
Listen, the NA faithful, this is one of the best draws we could have seen. Realistically, if you still have LCS Hopium, this is a decent look for this year. I think every one of these teams can have a look where you're like, hey, I can see the run going. We've seen favorites crash and burn, and we've seen teams that are underdogs have the good run. So I think this is a solid draw. I think this is a good year for the LCS. And if you believed at any point during the year, you can still believe now.
Absolutely. Jordan, the LPL.
I think any draw would be a good draw for the LPL in the end. But if you're an LPL fan, I think that the great thing about this draw, we got a lot of sexy matchups. We got FPX going against Damwon. We got T1 going against RNG. And, you know, speaking of RNG, I'm just going to end the note of following Freak's boldness from earlier of predicting Team Liquid to win Worlds. RNG are winning Worlds this year. It's pretty much locked and loaded. They already won MSI. Let's go LPL.
Chronicler, the LCK.
Yeah, I don't know how RNG or Liquid are winning Worlds when it's clearly going to be a Damwon Kia versus T1 finals. I don't know what you guys are on about, but obviously that's happening. Oh, no. Free
That's a quarterfinal at best.
As could be.
Yeah. Here in Europe, we're usually realistic.
I'm very optimistic about the chances for T1 and Damwon. And Hanwha, if they do well in play-ins, I could actually see them make a deep surprise one as well.
Thaddeus, what's the bare minimum? Is it 2 teams in semifinals?
All right, Europe. There's no G2, so there's no chance. You guys know the drill. We don't stand a chance. You know, you're going to have to pick your favorite LPL team to support. You know, it's just how it is. Except for the fact that we're going to smash everyone. Got him! Easy debate. Europe. Fnatic is easily going to make it out of their group. and who? Exactly. Fnatic top of their group with Mad Lions clearly knocking everyone else out of their team. Rogue, they look like underdogs, but actually they're called Rogue. Clear backstab. While FPX and DK fight for second, Rogue will be sitting top of their group. So Europe, we'll see you in semis. Easy Worlds.
I think I'm gonna have to sign off. I don't have any oxygen. It's all hopium. I don't know.
Hopium everywhere.
What's going on? And the same over there in NA and in Korea and in China, it seems like. In any case, that was all from us here in Berlin. Thank you so much to my analysts for previewing the World Championship. It's really getting started now, everyone. In 2 weeks, we're headed to Reykjavik and the start of Worlds 2021. See you then.